Alright guys, so we're here with my beautiful Nissan Altima Coupe again, as always working on this thing. And I'm going to show you how to check your brakes today to make sure they're good, that you don't need to replace anything, and yeah, I'm just going to show you how to give them a quick look over. So the first thing you're going to want to do is grab a flashlight. Get good lighting on there, get a good look at your pad. And your pad should 100% be thicker than your backing plate. Once it becomes thinner than your backing plate, it becomes very bad at transferring heat. It will absorb a lot more heat than it will let go. But if your pad is thinner than the metal part that holds the pad on, it's time to replace it. This back one, you can see through the caliper right there. And that little notch in the middle of the pad, if that's still there, there's a pretty good chance your pads are still good. That means they're still relatively new. It's better to check on a day that's dry because you see all this wetness back here, but it's just because you can't tell now because it's Kansas, but it was actually raining earlier and I was driving around in that, so it's muddy and wet. So you just want to do the same thing and check the other side. And this pad's looking a little bit thin. But since it's the rear brakes, they deteriorate a little bit slower. So I'm going to go ahead and say that's okay. And the back one looks all right as well. So, and again, everything looks pretty wet, but that is normal because it just rained. Normally, any signs of fluid back here, especially on a front wheel drive car, that's going to be a bad sign. That's going to be meaning that you're probably going to have a brake line leaking or a fuel line leaking, which both those things are not good. So when you check your front brakes, you can turn your wheel. You might have to, put your key in the ignition and unlock your wheel lock, but you can go ahead and turn your wheel if you think that will help you get a better view. But you just want to look right there in between your rotor and pad and you can kind of get a good view through the middle right here. And the camera's kind of having a hard time catching the angle, but maybe it's because I have two eyes and depth perception and all that. But you just want to get a look at your pads. That's all you're looking at. When your pads are this part right here, I really don't know how to explain. If you don't know what the pads are, you probably shouldn't be checking them. And then same thing, you can check through the caliper. You see the little notch, so you know that one's still pretty new. And up here, if you see a leak, it could be a sign of engine or transmission stuff too, or maybe even your CV axle. So don't immediately think, oh, there's wet up here, so I could have a brake leak. No, there's a lot more possibilities when you get up to the front of the car. So you want to go check your last one, and never, ever, ever check only 2 or 3 or just one. Make sure you check all your brakes, because if one of them is braking or wearing a lot faster than the others, that means that you have something wrong with the caliper itself, the line. There's a number of things that could be going wrong there, but you want to make sure that if you're not getting even wear everywhere, that you are trying to figure out why. All my pads are good. I just replaced the brakes on these not too long ago. The only real way you can test your rotors is if you have tools to measure run out, and if you have those tools, you probably already know how to check your rotors. And another way you can check is if you brake and only when you push the brakes, your car feels like it's shaking, that's a sign of a warped brake rotor, or both warped brake rotors. And I always replace my rotors in pairs. All right. And that right there is going to be your brake fluid reservoir. Now, this is a Nissan Altima Coupe. I'm sure on a Nissan Altima sedan it's probably similar, but it's also going to be similar on almost any car that you have. Your master cylinder reservoir is pretty much always going to be right in front of your driver's side, near your brake pedal. It's pretty rare that they relocate it, and if they do relocate it, it's usually for ease of access, meaning it will be easy for you to see it. It will be clearly labeled brake fluid, and you just want to make sure your brake fluid level is high, topped off well. You don't want it to be low at all because your brakes run off of fluid pressure. So if there's no fluid in there, then your brakes won't work. So that's how you do a basic brake check. And I'm not saying that this will save you from getting into a wreck if something's severely wrong with your brakes, but it will at least give you an idea of where you should be looking and what to know to look for. All right, guys, well, that's it for this video. I'm going to slap these 20s on the Altima, and then I'm going to call it a day. See you next time.
You are now listening to a Wave God exclusive.